we're kinda done, I think. So guys, you guys probably just watched the time lapse of us finishing up the most of the enclosures. So we were able to kind of blended a few days of time lapses together. We were able to get all of the wood and everything into these enclosures. And we all got doors on them, we all got locks on them. They can hold animals. They have heat, they have UV, they have basking areas, they have heated areas. I actually just got finished flushing the entire pond system out with fresh water because we had a lot of sediment in there and everything else that went into the pond when we were putting everything together, which we should be done with that now. The only other big thing, which isn't really a big thing, but is I need to start thinking about and setting up the camera system. I still have 16 Cat 5 cables that I ran out here for all of the surveillance that's going in the enclosures, and I have a bunch of new 4K cameras that have actually color night vision on them, which is going to be rad. So we need to figure out where we're going to put those, but first I need to get the other lay boxes into the enclosure, so we're going to have to do that first. But those are all little stuff. But basically, a lot of this stuff is done. So I'm going to give you guys kind of a tour of what I have going on right now, starting with these cages. We have, let me shut off this water before we overflow the ponds. So we have Onyx's enclosure out here. There she is, hanging out. Ugh. Let's get this door unlocked. I got it kind of wedged in there because I had the hose in there. The ponds are all concreted in. We have the basking area is actually on top of a huge boulder, which is kind of cool. I've never really done that before. And it seems to be working okay. I'm actually going to up their heat up in these enclosures. We have her lay box all ready and set up and ready to go. She seems to be liking it so far. And it's just a real basic setup in here for the water monitors right now until we can always add stuff later. So then over here, we have Yoshi's enclosure. And Yoshi's got a very similar setup, except she can't really get up and down branches. So we have like the handicap accessible ramps that go everywhere in here. And she has a real basic basking area down here. We're gonna add her lay box in here today as well. And then her pond is also concreted in, but we actually used a much rougher surface around her pond. This is more of a grout. And that's to help her get in and out of the pond because she's so damn old. She can hardly get around. So then we get to the really fun stuff, which is the gigantic croc monitor enclosure. So this thing is 12 feet deep, 16 feet wide, 16 feet tall, and you can see the, well, you probably can't see, but check this thing out. So we can come in here, come under the foliage. We have a lay box back there that's inside of a barrel. They can also dig around in these plants. They have heated areas as well on top of these boulders. And then obviously we have the awesome flowing river that runs through all of the croc enclosures. And we got the big guy up there basking in the sunlight and in the artificial UV because we have the skylight right there and the Ultra Vitalux 300 watts up there as well, 230 volt lighting. And then another thing we do have to finish adding is the misting system, which won't take long. I actually have a system already that I've already kind of figured out from the last place. We're gonna set that up in here. Then we have the other big male is actually in here. He's all the way up there in his basking area. But all of the cages are pretty similar. We have a shelving area with an air gap on the side that allows us to kind of climb all the way through. And we have the river that runs through all of the enclosures. And then there's a heated area in the back corner on all of the enclosures as well. So, and we got our big guy who's up there. You can see his tail hanging out right there. He's up there basking away. And that's pretty rad. So that's the first of the 6 foot wide croc enclosures. And these are all 12 feet deep and 16 feet tall. Here's the second. This one actually doesn't have natural lighting in it. It only has the UV, the artificial UV. We put a bunch more foliage in here to see if that would maybe spark some differences, along with some different species of trees. And then we also still have the heating area in the back, and then some cool stuff to climb on. And there's plenty of branches. There's actually multiple ways to get up to the basking areas. So it should be pretty cool. And then in this enclosure, this one's set up for the lace. I think I want to put the laces in here. But we have a gigantic manzanita tree set up and shoved in here. Then we have this giant log, which is super cool. And obviously the river runs through here as well. We have our little passovers, our heated area in the back. And then we have another big log. They can actually go inside that log, which is kind of cool. And then this one has a walkout on it. So there's actually a deck up there that comes out 4 feet. So you can see it's just a 4-foot square deck. Not a huge deck like the other one, because I didn't want to take up all the space in the smaller enclosures, but you can walk out from above. You have a door up there, so you can get up on top of the enclosures, which I'll add steps to later, and walk straight out into this enclosure. And then we have our little basking branch up there above the, right below the artificial UV. And then we also have, obviously, the big skylight in there, giving natural light. Then we'll carry on down the line. And this is where the big black dragon is. And he's in the pond constantly, so you probably won't be able to see him. But this is the big black dragon enclosure. So we have a nice basking area. There's a bunch of slate back there. This is where the river feeds into. So the intake for the pump for the filter system on the side of the building is in the bottom of this pond. So everything feeds and flows into this pond. This is the Sump Pond. But he's in here. I like to keep everything open in these enclosures just because it's easier for breeding, as the female always ends up in like a weird, you know, corner of something, or lodged in like a corner somewhere, and the male can't get into a good position to, you know, make love happen. So I try to keep all this stuff really basic in the male's enclosure. We just want to make sure they have branches to get in and out of the pond, a nice basking area with hot rocks, and then a way to get up into the upper shelves where the UV is. So pretty cool. We obviously have the filter system as well, so we can go take a look at that. We literally just finished up everything yesterday, and I finished up some little stuff this morning, so that's why it still looks like a construction site, because it is a construction site. So this is the main filter system. That's a 1 horsepower whisper flow pool pump with a pre-filter screen in it, just like you would find on any pool filter. That feeds into a Aquas Ultraviolet Ultima 2 2000 pond filter, and you can backwash that thing as well, which is rad. And then we have everything runs through this water chiller slash heater. So this thing can actually heat water as well as cool the water. So during the really cold times of the year, you just flip the switch over to heat, and it'll heat and regulate the same temperature. And then when it's really hot out and the water's getting hot, you just flip the switch over to cool for those months, and it'll be cooling the water to the desired temperature. Everything's on a timer. Everything out here is 220 volt. And then we also have our awesome swamp cooler. So this is a 2,800 square foot swamp cooler, and this feeds the entire building, and that'll keep the entire building cool and the temperature regulated pretty much all year round. It doesn't heat, but it does cool, and that's all that matters. It's super cool. So we can go back inside, and you know, guys, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of other little features that are really cool, that are cool to me anyway. Like when I did all the electrical behind the cages, I ran everything up high. So all the outlets are 8 feet off the ground. So if you look down here, we don't have any electrical. You can walk straight through here without having any issues because all the electrical's above you. So you have a completely clear walkway to get through all this stuff. You don't have any impedance with electrical cables or anything. And then, you know, we just had everything really thought out before we started doing stuff, because that's the time to do it. We started with a blank slate. So if you start with a blank slate, you can make it whatever you want. You might as well make it right. So that's what we did. And then obviously we have the entire building, the fire sprinkler system, everything's in here. So we're good to go. As far as safety goes and everything else, we're good to go. The whole building's insulated, the entire building, 100% insulated. The floor of all the enclosures are open dirt, so they can dig down as far as they want. And then there's 2-foot deep dividers underneath all the walls that are PVC. So that's never gonna rot out, and that acts as a barrier so the animals can't get underneath into the other cages. There's also a 3-foot deep footer of concrete on the edge of the entire opening in the slab, so they can't dig under the concrete either. So everything should be pretty good. The only issues we've had so far is as soon as we got the big male, the first thing he started doing was shoving his head through the screen on the roof, because I didn't really, you know, I figured they'd pick up on the fact they couldn't get through pretty quick, but apparently they, what kind of happened was when you have 2 males together, they don't like being together, but we've just been having them together because we kind of had to have them together lately, because they are the 2 biggest animals we have, and we just haven't had the room to keep them separately. So they get along fine, but they don't like to hang out. So when the big male is up in the basking area, the other male can't be up there, which is why we separate them out now, because now he can bask and the other guy can bask, and they're in separate enclosures and everybody's happy. But what had happened was he had gotten kind of spooked because the other male came up to the basking area, who's the dominant male, who's up there now, and he was just trying to get away. So so we ended up adding some, it's basically 1 inch by 1 inch square chicken wire, but it's not really chicken wire. It's really thick gauge wire, thick gauge screen. So we added that in the basking areas, above the basking areas and above some other areas, just to make sure that they couldn't get out. But aside from that, the only areas that they'll be able to get that close to the ceiling is the basking areas. So yeah, they're not gonna be able to get out any of the other areas, and you'd literally have to get your head through and then somehow get your shoulders through in order to get out. So I don't know. I think it's wishful thinking for them to be able to get out. Even if they do get out of the enclosures, they can't get out of the building. There's no windows or anything in here. So, but it's one of those things where we'll keep an eye on it. We can make adjustments as we go if we have to. So it's a pretty simple fix. So pretty cool. We're on the home stretch here. I only have 1 more week off work, so it's a good thing we're finishing this up when we are. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the series. I'll continue to do some time lapses here and there for, I guess, just to show you guys some extra stuff I'm doing on the sides or whatever, but I kind of consider this to be the last episode of the Croc Monitor Salvadorii breeding facility. And I actually have something special I wanted to show you guys before I let you go. And I haven't put it up yet because we haven't, I want to make sure everything was completely finished before we put it up, but we're going to end up putting it up, I think, just on the big enclosure, or maybe we'll hang it from the roof trusses. But we got this awesome sign in honor of Joseph Vela passing away towards the end of last year. And that's actually one of the croc monitors that I got, smiling for him. And we wanted this to be kind of a memorial Salvadorii breeding project for Joseph Vela, because most of the croc monitors that are in here are his, or came from him and his family. And we're just hoping to be able to continue on with his legacy and hopefully get these guys to breed. And that's what he wanted. He wanted these guys to go to a big breeding facility where they could finally get bred, and you know, he wanted to breed them as well. So I'm sure he'd probably be okay with what we built here. I would hope so. This is literally the largest croc monitor breeding facility in the world. So, and this enclosure right here is the largest croc monitor enclosure in captivity in the world. So, I mean, I pulled no punches on this project. So hopefully, and even if they don't breed, you know, this is an awesome project and people come, hopefully, you know, come from around to come check it out. If you guys want to, you're more than welcome. But, you know, we'd like to see babies, but I just didn't want to think that there was something else I could have done, and then I didn't have the room to do it, you know? So I made sure we had a custom-made building, so it was extra tall. All the enclosures go all the way up to the roof. I don't think there's anyone in the industry that's probably gonna come out real soon and have an indoor facility like this that is this big. So that's the idea, is to just make sure that we had overdone everything so we didn't have to go back and think that we had underdone anything. And that's kind of how I do a lot of stuff, to be honest. So I go all in on all the projects I do. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Hopefully Joseph likes the project, and maybe he can get these guys to breed for us, and hopefully we'll have some croc monitor babies maybe the middle of next year or late next year, more likely. So pretty awesome. As always, keep feeding.